Hi everyone, this is Professor Cushing. I made this video so that you can walk through the Greensheet with me and get a better understanding of what we're going to be doing this semester. This document serves as kind of a contract between you and me, so I just want to make sure everyone's on the same page and knows what's expected of them this semester. And if everyone knows what's expected, I'm very confident that everyone will be successful in class. Okay, so I'd like to start off by inviting you to my office hours, which are Thursdays from 3 to 5 in Washington Square Hall, room 216G. If you go to the middle of page 1, you'll see a section entitled Course Overview and Objectives. And basically what we'll be doing this semester is kind of sampling a variety of different topics, starting with understanding what sustainability is, looking at the scientific method. We'll look at ecosystems, and we'll also talk about climate change. That's kind of what we'll be doing for the first 4 weeks. So as you can kind of tell from that overview, we're really going to be talking about some of today's most pressing environmental issues. And using ideas from natural sciences and social sciences, we'll be able to better understand how environmental problems arise and what we can do to fix them. So thanks. This is going to be a really, really interesting class and a really exciting time for you to learn about these issues. In terms of learning objectives, we have 3 of them. First, we want you to learn more about these topics in general so that you can be more knowledgeable about them. Secondly, we want you to understand how these issues relate to larger resource use and political and economic issues, which is something I think oftentimes when we read a newspaper article about an environmental issue, it's kind of hard to make those connections. So we'll be talking about that as well. And third, we want to help you understand how at the individual and at the societal level, we can take steps to live more sustainably to ensure a sustainable future for us and for future generations. So that's page 1. If you could follow along with me and turn to page 2, that would be great. So if you go about a third of the way down the page, you'll see a section called Required Book, and this is a picture of our required textbook. It has a mountain lion on the top. All the ordering information is in the green sheet. Just make sure the ISBN number matches and you should be good to go. I also want to mention that we'll be watching 3 films together this semester. Food Inc., which is about, as you guessed it, food. And that's a really eye-opening film that I think you'll enjoy watching. The second film is about water, and that's called Tapped. And the third film is about alternative fuel vehicles, and it's called Revenge of the Electric Car. Just pardon me, I lost you on my screen, so now you're back. We'll be watching most of these films in class, or at least part of them, but you will probably need to make arrangements to rent these films on your own or borrow them from the library in order to do the film viewing assignments that are associated with them. So that's a really important piece of information to keep in mind. Now I'm moving to the bottom part of page 2 where it says Classroom Protocol. And under class format, I just want to explain that we'll be meeting mostly face-to-face twice a week for the course of the semester. There will be some online assignments, but I do expect to see you in class on the 2 days a week that we're meeting in DMH, I think it's 164. Okay, you will also write a lot for the class because that is an excellent way for you to kind of demonstrate what you've learned. And also, it's a really good way for me to give you feedback on your work. Other important parts of the class include student-led discussions and presentations. So I really want you to think about the topics that we'll be discussing and also feel comfortable talking about them in front of others. Now moving on to page 3. I would like to reiterate that doing the reading before class is really important so that you can participate more meaningfully in discussions and you'll get more out of lectures that way. So I've tried to be pretty careful as I put together the green sheet to tell you when you need to have completed readings by. So please pay attention to that class schedule. Kind of look at it, the week or two before you're actually coming to class. I also want to mention that our class has a Canvas website, and I'll be using that to kind of post materials and announcements, and you'll be using it to upload your assignments to. So there is a bit of an online component to the class, and I hope that you can get on your Canvas account this week and make sure you can access the green sheet and other materials that I've posted on the web. Okay, please check Canvas for this class several times a week because announcements will come up. I might find an interesting article that I'd like to share with you. The due date for an assignment might change. There might be some interesting information that's come up in the San Jose Mercury News or at the university about an environmental topic, and I want to share it with you. So please try to make sure that you check the announcements section in Canvas for the course 3 times a week. Okay, that's the energy saver function for my computer going into overdrive. All right, and please note that you are kind of expected to be tech savvy enough to download and upload course materials, and I do have a number of recorded lectures that I'd like you to watch, and so you should be able to watch those as well. I also want to mention that in terms of behavior, we should treat everybody in the class, your instructor and your fellow students, with courtesy and respect. And I know all of you seem like really, really nice people, those of you that I've talked to before class, but we need to put this information in there to protect other students from any potential issues that might come up. So please try to be polite to your fellow students. I also recommend that you establish a weekly schedule that includes 3 to 6 hours of study time for the class. The book is really interesting, but the chapters are quite long, so you will need to allocate a significant amount of time to preparing for class in order to do well. And when we have longer writing assignments or the midterm coming up, you really do need to make sure you set aside time for that. I've talked about office visits already. I am available via Skype, and I've listed my Skype ID, so if you'd like to request me as a contact, you can do that, and we can have a Skype conversation. I've done that with a number of students, and it seems to have worked out well. In the middle of page 3, there's a section called Assignments and Grading. So I'll just go over these assignments briefly and talk about point allocation. Basically, it's pretty straightforward. There's 100 course points, and your grade for the course is based on the number of course points you earn over the semester. The first item on assignments, the first item under assignments are the online discussions and problem responses. So there's 5 sets of these discussion prompts and problems. Each set is worth 4 points each, so that's about 20% of your grade. There'll also be a number of in-class exercises, and this could be something like a pop quiz to make sure that you've done the reading for the class. It could be the organic versus conventional food taste test. It includes the campus sustainability tour. So these types of in-class activities combined are worth 15% of your course grade. Next, we have exams. There's 2 exams, a midterm and a final. They're each worth 15 points, and that makes up 30% of your grade. And as I mentioned earlier, we'll be watching and analyzing 3 films, and those are worth 3 to 4 points each for a total of 10 points. And then we have 2 written assignments. Okay, the first is a field experience report. Well, you'll be going out into the field. You'll be visiting the Tech Museum, for example, or the Cal Academy of Sciences, or the Santa Clara Valley Water District, and you'll be writing about that experience. And then we also have a research paper to complete. So the field experience report we do kind of in the beginning half of class, that's worth 10 points. And the research paper we do in the second half of class, and that's worth 15 points. So if you add all those points up together, that's 100 points, and that constitutes your grade for the course. In terms of assignment due dates and late assignment policies, as I mentioned before, you'll be uploading all your assignments to the Canvas site unless otherwise noted. So those are usually due at right before midnight, as noted on the course schedule. And the due dates will also be online on the Canvas site, so you'll be able to see them. For online discussions, which I'll talk about in a little bit, you need to make your contributions over the course of the week and not just kind of try to cram them in the hour or two before they're due. And this is so that you are thinking a little bit more about the topics and getting more out of the readings as opposed to just trying to do it at the last minute. I'm going to turn the page now. Now I'm on page 4. If you read the late policy, you will see that you want to make sure you turn everything in on time. And in the past, even though you're done with the work, the work has to be completed and uploaded by 11:59, usually the day that the assignment is due. And sometimes there can be a glitch, so you want to make sure that you're uploading your assignments, I'd say, at least 10 or 15 minutes before the due time, because sometimes it will shut you out. Assignments more than an hour past the specified time incur a penalty of, a grading penalty. And so it's really best if you try to turn your work in on time. Even if you feel like it's not quite perfect, just try to, being on time is more important than just kind of tweaking that last sentence or two. So try to make sure that you get work in on time. And after a week, it becomes very unlikely that your work will receive credit. So please try not to turn anything in more than a week late. And if there's a reason why you need an extension, or you have had something come up and you're really having trouble completing the coursework, please send me an email or come and see me so that I can help you, because I want you to be successful in class. Okay, as far as course grading goes, as I mentioned before, there's 100 course points, and your course grade is based on how many of those course points you're able to earn, with kind of standard cutoff points between A and A minuses, B and B minuses, and C and C minuses. So please make sure you're familiar with how the point allocation works, and if you can, I would check, how you're doing regularly, and come talk to me if you think, you're not doing as well as you should, or, if an assignment has been missed. Okay, I'm moving on to page 5, where there's the course schedule, and I'm not going to go over the details I'm not going to go over every single course, but I just want to show you in general how. I'm not going to go over every class meeting, but I want to show you how the course is laid out. So it's a general schedule, so please note that the contents may change, and the best way to find out how to keep current is to check the Canvas site, the announcements section, several times a week, okay? Unless otherwise noted, you want to upload everything to Canvas, and most all of the reading is from the textbook, Miller and Spoolman. So with that, I will actually go through some of the work that we'll be doing for the first several weeks of the course up until the midterm. So you kind of get a feel for what I'm talking about. So for our first class meeting, we're just doing student introductions and going over the Greensheet. So if you are in section 3, this kind of constitutes our class meeting, because we're going over the Greensheet together. We're going to talk about what is sustainability, what have you heard about or learned about in the course of your life that has to do with sustainability, and how does it relate to the way we're defining sustainability for this course. For the next class meeting, what I'd like you to do is bring in a printed newspaper article on an environmental topic with a 1 to 2 paragraph explanation of how this article relates to sustainability, their problems, their causes, and solutions. So if you could please bring that article to class at our next class meeting, okay, a hard copy of the article plus your analysis. We'll use this for discussion, okay? And then if you look at what else we have planned for our second class meeting, please bring, we'll be going over the ecological footprint, and we'll talk about that in class. It's due on August 28th. Okay. For week 3, we'll be going over Miller Chapter 2 and also part of Chapter 19 where we talk about climate change. And there may be a pop quiz. In week 4, we'll discuss ecosystems and there will be an online discussion. In week 5, we'll talk about food and agriculture, and this is where we'll do kind of a combination of film viewing where we'll look at Food Inc. And we'll also review Chapter 12 of the textbook. This is also in week 6 where we sign up to bring different types of foods and vegetables, bread, for the organic versus conventional food taste test, okay? And in week 7, we'll talk about population because oftentimes environmentalists say that environmental impact and the problems that we're having is based on a combination of 3 factors: affluence, technology, and population. And so any conversation about environmental issues is really not complete if you're not addressing issues of population. So we'll be talking about that in week 7. And then in week 8, we'll be doing kind of some more active activities. We'll be doing our taste test, and you'll be taking a physical tour of kind of green spots on campus. And then we have the midterm. So, by this point in the semester, you probably have a pretty good idea of how things are going to work, and we'll have the midterm. Okay, so our first meeting of the week, we'll kind of go over material to be covered, and then the next class meeting will have the midterm itself, which will be in class. In week 10, we'll spend some time talking about resources for water. So how much water do we have? And in week 11, we'll talk about water pollution or water quality. So these are kind of the 2 major ways of thinking about water from an environmental standpoint. How much water do we have and how good is it? And then in week 12, we'll talk about bottled water, which is a topic that many of you, all of us, are familiar with. And what are the environmental, social, and economic impacts of consuming so much bottled water in the U.S. and worldwide? If you could turn the page to page 7, we'll talk a little bit about what's going on for that part of the class. So in week 13, we're going to move to energy. And the first set of topics we'll cover has to do with non-renewable energy. Okay. So that's fossil fuels. In week 14, we'll talk about air pollution, which is a direct result of overuse of non-renewable fossil fuel-based energy. And in week 15, we have our next film, which is Revenge of the Electric Car. To start looking at alternatives or solutions to the excessive use of non-renewable energy. And then kind of continuing our thoughts on solutions, in week 16, we'll cover energy efficiency and renewable energy. And actually, these three topics, these four topics actually, these are kind of the basis of your research paper. So that's kind of how the class is all structured to work together. And then we have our final on December 11th. So that's kind of the overall course plan for the semester. And we'll be covering, as you can see, a lot of different subjects, but really, really important and interesting subjects in hopefully a fun way. I want to take a little bit of time to go over some university and classroom policies. And I know it's kind of dull and boring, but if you can stay with me, it'll be a really good thing for us to all have a common understanding of expectations for the class. So the first thing on the agenda for page 8 is in-class electronics. So please do not use electronic devices in class unless you have my permission. Basically you can bring in a laptop to take notes, but please don't use it to surf the web or check your email or do other things that might distract other students or distract me as the instructor from what we're trying to do here, okay? This is kind of a cell phone free zone, so turn off your phone. Don't take any calls during this time. Don't leave class to take a call, okay? Please, please, please try to respect me and your fellow students by kind of considering the classroom to be an electronic free zone unless you are using a computer to take notes for the class. Okay, if I find that you're in violation of this classroom policy, I do have the right to confiscate your device during the class. I will give it back to you, but please know that I reserve the right to confiscate the device. I might ask you to leave the class for the day. And if the practice continues, you might be referred to university administration for further action, which I don't want that to happen. So let's just not talk about that anymore. All right. Dropping and adding. Just please make sure that you are aware of the drop and add dates and that you abide by them. I've been teaching here for about 10 years, and it's very unfortunate when a student has meant to drop the class and has not dropped it, because if they don't take the proper steps to get it off their record, it stays on as a W, which eventually turns into an F in terms of grade point average, and you just don't want that following you around for your academic career. So please make sure that you're aware of those dates, and that if you need to drop the class, you do so by the deadline. Okay. Academic integrity. Please don't plagiarize. Please don't cheat on exams. Please do your own work. Okay. And if you see someone who you think is violating the academic integrity policy, please notify me and I will pursue the issue further. If you need an adaptation because of a disability, please make sure that you're registered with the DRC, that's the Disability Resource Center, and that you talk to me as soon as possible so I can make appropriate accommodations for you. There's two other really great resources that I want to point out to you. There's the Learning Assistance Resource Center, Peer Connections, which I recommend to everyone. I think they're a great organization. And also the Writing Center. If you feel like you've been struggling with your writing for previous classes and you really want to step up your game and improve your writing, the writing tutors can help writers at any level. So people who feel like they're really struggling, even just putting together a basic paragraph, to people that are really good writers but could become very good or excellent writers. So if I write a note to you and say, hey, I think it's a good idea if you consider working with a tutor at the Writing Center, please, please, please try to follow my recommendation. It will really help you. All right, I'm on page 10. Just want to talk to you a little bit about Canvas and also online discussions, and then we'll call it a day for this week. Okay. So please know that I am not a technical expert on Canvas. I can post content there, and I'll post some other material there. But in terms of accessing Canvas and some of the other technical details, you really have to work with eCampus to get the assistance that you need. And I put some basic information on there about how you access the site and how you can get help. And there, my expertise kind of stops. Certainly, if you've been, contacting eCampus and you're not getting any response from them, tell me, and I'll see what I can do to help you. Oops. But try as much as you can to work with eCampus as soon as you see a problem occurring. And there's a phone number and a website on page 10 that will help get you started. Now I'm on page 11. Let's see, I think we've already talked about proficiency expectations. So you're expected to be kind of tech savvy enough with the computer to be able to obtain course materials and to upload and download assignments, okay? And to watch course lectures. So that's about the level of expertise that you need to participate meaningfully in the class. Online discussions, I already mentioned, really try to attend them at least 2 times a week, 3 times a week if you can. On the weeks that we have them, we don't have them every week. And then in the middle of page 11, I talk a little bit more about how do you perform well on an online discussion. And some of you may have already had a class where you do online discussions, but every instructor is different, and so this is the way that I like to have instructions for my discussions, because I think that it helps raise the level of conversation. So for every topic that we have, you will need to post about 5 significant messages. And a significant message is, 1 or 2 paragraphs, and they're paragraphs that demonstrate that you not only completed the reading and that you understand it, but actually that you can kind of go beyond the material in the reading and apply ideas in the reading to your own situation and think more about, what the next step is, or if this is true, what are the implications of this to other populations or to the human population in the future. Okay, so please pay attention to that, and also thinking about how to add value to the online conversation. I really encourage you to conduct additional research outside of the textbook excuse me, and share that with the class as well. Try to make sure when you're posting an additional resource, that you say why it's interesting or what you found interesting about the site, and not just, hey, here's an interesting site, take a look at it. You'll get more points that way. And now we're on page 12, which is the last page of the Greensheet. And these are just the criteria for getting kind of full credit and A-level post in your online discussion. So please make sure that what you write demonstrates a good understanding of the week's topics, that you have read other students' work and that you're responding to their work, that you respond appropriately to my text. So I might ask you a question about, what is the author's main premise for this article? So make sure that you say the author's main idea or the main argument the author's trying to get across is blah, 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 as opposed to maybe talking about something else that was in the article but is not, central to answering that specific prompt. An A-level prompt also adds depth. So, there might be an article on fracking that is quite brief that you read, and you might find another article or analysis from a government agency on fracking. So you can, that's just one example of how you might be able to deepen the discussion through your post. You might write a post that helps answer a question that a fellow student asks. And you might also write a post that relates a personal experience that you've had on this topic and explains how it relates to the course material. So for example, when I was a graduate student in China, I spent a lot of time collecting data there, and I personally saw a lot of the issues having to do with air pollution. That the particulate matter in the air was so bad, whenever you blew your nose, what was in the handkerchief is actually quite black almost every day. And so that just gives you a physical, reminder of how serious air quality issues were in China in the mid-1990s. So, that kind of a personal experience is interesting for people to read and helps them understand some of these topics, which can be very abstract sometimes, like climate change. So if you're able to describe a personal experience, that helps make your post better. It improves the quality of your post, gets other people to read it. And your post should also demonstrate a high quality of writing. So please, please, please proofread your posts before you submit them. That means proper punctuation, grammar, capitalization, use of full sentences, citing your sources, don't make any spelling errors. So all these kind of things that you do when you're writing a paper, a formal paper, should also apply to your written post. Okay, and then the last thing is please try to pay attention to the due dates for the assignments and make sure that you submit them electronically on time. Thank you for spending about half an hour with me. I really look forward to working with you this semester, and I will see you on campus soon. Ciao.